Well, hello, my name is Andy Tidy and welcome to another edition of Canal Hunter. In this second series we've been following the line of the old Birmingham Canal through from the Smethwick area all the way to Wolverhampton. Well, in this episode we have finally arrived. Today we are in Wolverhampton. Whereas in Birmingham there were major lost wharves like the Gibson Arms and the Old Wharf, here in Wolverhampton there were just a myriad of small wharves, small arms, maybe 200-300 yards long, but they lined the canal all the way through from Horsley Junction into the city centre, and the factories crowded alongside the new canal, and they were ran 2 or 3 deep, so from time to time there were little sort of side arms leading in so that the boats could reach these slightly more distant enterprises. By the time the canal reached here in 1771, we were 12.5 miles from Birmingham city centre. But actually, we were 22.5 miles by canal on account of its winding and circuitous route. Perhaps the scale of the industry surrounding the canal can be illustrated by the fact that in 1851 there were no less than 13 different coal merchants trading from the banks of the Birmingham Canal. With so many lost arms to look for, it's difficult to know where to start. But I've decided to start today's hunt with the basin behind me. You can see the gantry of the Chillington Wharf Basin. This was an old railway interchange basin. Now, the Chillington Wharf interchange basin is rather special. It is undoubtedly the best preserved interchange basin on the BCN. Not only does it have this iconic crane above me, it also has the covered warehousing and the covered basin. Most of the basins had the covers on, but they're all long gone. But it's probably appropriate to say a thing or two about railway interchanges and their interaction between the railways and the canals. From the outset, the canals saw the railways as a threat to their trade, and they tried to oppose their construction. The BCN was no exception, and they fought any proposed railway in their territory tooth and nail. Whilst the railways did represent a threat to the canals, in a perverse way, they were also the saviour of the BCN for many years in its later days of trading. You see, the industry in the area had grown up so densely packed around the canal network, and the canal network, as you've seen in these past videos, was so intricate there was no space to insert any new railways. And the answer, being pragmatic, was to simply use the railways and canals in conjunction with one another. So they brought railway sidings in alongside the canal, and where there was space they dug out railway interchange basins. And there are a lot of them around the BCN. Most of them are overgrown, weeded up and virtually lost. But here at Chillington you've got a remote one which has amazingly been left intact since its useful days were over in the 1950s. And in this location there were not one but 2 railway interchange basins. There was the one here at Chillington, which you see behind me, and then 100 yards or so just opposite the old power station there was the Shrubbery interchange basin. This episode we're going to take a ride all the way out here from Chillington to the junction of the Wolverhampton 21 locks where they exit onto the Staffs and Worcester. And along the line we will find the old entrances to the arms that are still visible. So let's go, take a look and see what we can find. site of the entrance to the Waterloo Wharf. This is the old Wolverhampton power station. This is the turbine hall, with of course its own little entrance wharf for loading coal. And immediately to the north of the turbine hall there is yet another little arm leading off. This one is the entrance to Commercial Wharf, extended out for about 200 yards with a T section going off to the north. The canal itself is long gone. The layout of the canal is still visible in the local road network in the industrial estate. This served a number of different factories, notably the Patent Tip and Horseshoe Company, which later became Elwell Parker. They specialised in dynamos and electrical equipment, and that directly led to the development of electrical generating capacity here in Wolverhampton. I previously mentioned the shrubbery interchange basin. Now, although the interchange basin has gone, its entrance is still visible in the edge of the towpath. Slightly to the north, and between Horsley Fields Bridge and Walsall Bridge, there is the very last working coal yard in Wolverhampton. Been on this site since time immemorial. Next to it, a small basin which is still used for canal maintenance. I don't think this basin is of any particular historical merit. It doesn't appear on the old maps, so that's a fairly recent construction. But just beside it, there is something completely different. This arm is merely the start of an arm that moves in for about 300 to 400 yards. And this glorious asbestos building opposite me was actually the site of Pickford's transport warehouse here in Wolverhampton. The narrowing jaws of the arm are quite unmistakable, and you can still see them in the old pictures, and they carried on into the industrial estate beyond. We've now arrived at Horsley Fields Junction. This is the junction where the old Birmingham Canal meets the Worley in Essington. And if you look over the ledge, you can see the entrance to yet another canal arm. To the best of my knowledge, this one was called Commercial Wharf. And it's probably fair to say that in this little section of canal around the junction, there was more water than there was land. Just 100 yards up the Worley in Essington, there is Old Wharf. This was a long arm which ran almost back to the main line, and in the slice of land, Commercial Wharf jutted in. So this little section here was intensely industrial and absolutely covered with old basins. And opposite Old Wharf, there is the entrance into yet another old interchange basin. I was fortunate enough to be given access to the old arm opposite the LMS dock. This arm was built to serve the Union Works, which you can see up at in the distance, but it's more recently been taken over by Urban Moorings, who are transforming the old site of the lime kilns on the end of the point into some really nice, tranquil urban moorings. The site continues on up the arm, getting increasingly silted as it goes. At the very far end there is an old boathouse. This was built in about 1890 and was used by Elijah Dyke to service his fleet of Hampton boats. These were extra big coal-carrying boats, 85 feet long by 8.5 feet wide, capable of carrying 50 tonnes. Here you can see them being towed along from the Cannock coalfield. But most recently, the site was used by a consortium based on the Wolverhampton Boat Club. And in this old boathouse, they literally built boats on the slipway, and This was carried on being occupied and used in this way till about 1990. These days the boathouse lies empty, but Urban Moorings have big plans for it, so hopefully we'll see it brought back to life in some different guise in the future. The canal side of Wolverhampton has been massively redeveloped over the years, but close to the station there are some old fragments, such as this still abandoned building, hemmed in between modern apartment buildings and the old Albion corn mill. And there we're going to leave it for this episode. My plan was to go all the way down to Horsley Junction, but there's been so much great material when I did my site visit to Wolverhampton. I'm going to leave you here at the start of the station diversion, and we'll come back and we'll start here again on our next episode. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Canal Hunter. This really is part 1. Click subscribe so that you can see part 2 when I post it. Thank you and happy hunting.